Welcome to Om on the Range, where we share the practice of meditation, the wisdom of Western Buddhism, and the refuge of our community. Whether you are new to meditation or a longtime practitioner, committed or curious, this offering is here to share solutions, stories, and support. Happiness and better health are available to everyone. It just takes practice. This is Om on the Range.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Om on the Range. I'm your host, Steph Watkins, and today feels really special. Usually, Whit is in this position, the steady voice guiding our conversations, shaping the questions, and holding the larger arc of what this podcast is trying to offer our listeners. And Whit isn't just our host, he's a listener, a teacher, a translator of the Dharma into everyday life, and the connective thread that keeps this space grounded, curious, and alive. His leadership has set the tone for how we show up here, thoughtful and willing to look honestly at our own experience. Today, I have the joy of inviting Whit into this conversation in a different way. We're taking some time to hear about this person behind the mic, his path, his questions, and the lived experience that informs the way he leads this amazing podcast. Whit, I'm really glad to be sharing this seat with you today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steph. First of all, there's no way I'm going to ever live up to that intro. So that's good that we got that out of the way, but I'm really looking forward to it. And just like you, the role reversal has brought some different energy to this. I feel a little nervous as well, but I'm really looking forward to it. I appreciate you stepping up and taking on this role. It's going to be fun, or it's going to be short. So when you're ready, I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I just want you to feel free to share whatever comes to your heart and mind. I would like you to feel like you can deviate from any question I ask you and expand on it, okay?
Absolutely. The guardrails are padded here. They're pretty wide apart. So let's go ahead and see if we can't find out where they are and see how they feel.
Okay, my friend, that sounds good. So I guess the most important question is, how did you get on this Western Buddhist path?
Well, when I started this, I did not know the term Western Buddhism, and it was not something that I was curious about. What started me on this path was I started a meditation practice sometime in 2002. I tried some self-help books, and some of them landed and some of them didn't. After a while, I realized that the only self-help book that was ever going to help me was one that I wrote. I realized that there were ways to get that sort of connection and find that kind of wisdom without maybe writing anything down or having a deadline. So I happened to have a lunch with a speaker at a company that I was employed at around that time. He was a motivational speaker. He, older than I was, had a pretty rich, experienced life, was a former Baptist preacher, was a recovering alcoholic, had married and divorced and then remarried the same woman. And he had found his way as a motivational speaker, but he also shared with me over lunch that he practiced meditation. I had thought about that and had kind of drifted towards that, but hadn't really embraced it. And so that meeting, which came about because I had a company credit card and somebody had to buy the guy lunch, led me to kind of give myself the approval I needed to start a practice. So that was the first thing. And the other thing is that at the same lunch, he happened to share a book that I found to be very helpful, very comforting, and very wise. So that's how it started for me, with just having a meditation practice.
Do you want to share the name of that book with us?
The name of the book is called The Key, and it's by Sherry Huber. And the subtitle is, the name of the key is Willingness. I believe that it was written in the early 90s. It's, 100 pages long and written in such a way that you could read it in an hour. but it's one of those books that you can just open up and start anywhere.
What is it about willingness? Tell me more about willingness.
Well, I think it's just the willingness to honestly embrace what you've experienced, both in the present moment and in the past. Also, the willingness to just sit with yourself. It doesn't really use any Buddhist terms, but one of the lines that I really love, and it's written in these little stanzas, but um, one of the quotes is that all that is required is that you accept that which is totally unacceptable to you. So just the whole idea of practicing awareness, practicing, understanding that's an important part of who you are and how you are, and then accepting what you find. So
Yeah, because so much of the world teaches us to be at war with what is.
right, absolutely. I've got a copy here on my desk, and it's funny. I've shared that information in that book, that recommendation before, and it's funny how books and teachings hit certain people and don't maybe hit others as hard. But for me, it's been the one book that I've really clung to, which of course is a poor choice of words for a Western Buddhist practitioner. So with that, I used both my practice and the book for the first 5-6 years anyway. It's just a way to better understand how I was feeling. And it was really just that simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what our Buddhist practice does for us, or at least Western Buddhism, is it really helps us get into the body and experience what we're feeling and to just be with it and be willing to accept that. I mean, I think that's the first part of accepting the world around us is accepting where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I think that once you can start accepting yourself and your feelings and, everything about whatever you is to you, then it kind of blossoms throughout your entire reality. You become much more open and much more aware of what's around you and what's really important and starting to see the feelings and emotions are true and important, but the stories aren't. The stories are the things that cause you pain and suffering. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I started on this path. And I became a pretty big proponent for meditation. It's something that anyone can do. And you don't need special training or special equipment. It's so beneficial I always say to your mental, spiritual, and physical health. I don't know of anything else that can make that claim, especially that's cost effective.
Do you want to share with us your journey with meditation, where you started and how your meditation feels today to you and how it's evolved?
Yeah, that would
Um,
be great. So I started with 10 breaths. In the beginning, it was in the evening. At first, it was 10 breaths, and then pretty quickly, it became like a minute. I'll tell you that when you start, that can be pretty daunting, especially when you're starting on your own. But, it's a weird feeling to try to develop a practice where basically you're just sitting there being aware of awareness. It's not that we're not thinking about stuff or feeling stuff because things certainly come up, but you're just sitting there and noticing how you feel and what comes up. For me, what I noticed because of my practice was that I began to feel a little bit better. I had less fear and less frustration. And I really don't have a good reason for fear and frustration in my life. I don't think you need a good reason. I think everybody carries around a certain amount of stress and a certain amount of trauma. And certainly there are different degrees of those things. I did not have a great deal of stress or trauma in my life, but I still had those feelings. I couldn't understand why, things it felt, unsatisfactory. It felt sometimes I was afraid and I couldn't really put a good reason as to why that was. And so through practice, I just became aware of those feelings and became much more comfortable with them being around and
so
make
that
space for them. So that helped me better get to know them.
wonderful. That's the power of meditation. That's the power of being with ourselves.
It slowly evolved. Um,
Were there tears?
Not really. I'm not wired that way. I'm much more likely to cry at an emotional moment in a sporting event than I am for any other
Yeah.
reason. Um, or a sappy holiday movie. But just in general, I don't think it's because I try not to show emotion.
Mhm.
I'm just more, I don't know, I'm more neutral in how I approach those feelings. I didn't have a lot of trauma to be carrying around. I was fortunate to have loving parents and a great family. I've always had a lot of friends. But I think it's interesting that that doesn't make my experience any less valuable or intense, really, than anybody else's. It just happens to be my experience.
Right. Sometimes when you meditate, it can bring up old feelings that might need your attention, and there might be tears involved in that. It
Glad
can
you
be
brought that up.
uncomfortable.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things that I learned pretty quickly. If you're going to sit by yourself, sooner or later, everything's going to come up. Whatever your fears are, those moments where maybe you're less than what you would hope to be. And
Mhm.
in time you realize that, hey, those are just thoughts. That's not who I am. And you get better with it. But as you start practicing and as these things start to happen, I found it very valuable to adopt the strategy that whatever was going to show up while I practiced, I was going to welcome it. I was going to try to be as welcoming and as good a host as I could be. I wasn't going to dwell on it. I wasn't going to push it away. I was going to acknowledge it, invite it to sit with me if it wanted to, but that was it. There were certainly times where I also just realized that, hey, I need to stop for a moment. I need to either open my eyes or reset, or maybe just stop altogether and come back at another time. Because, as you develop that space for whatever it is you might be carrying around or for whatever might pop up, you develop skills to welcome them and be comfortable with it, but it takes time.
Kind of reminds me of what Tammy said when you interviewed Tammy and Rodney Buckaloo. She
Mhm.
said she stops during the day so she can handle the stress during the day rather than having it all pile up at night when she
Yes.
waits to meditate at night. Like she does little sits throughout the day.
Right. And I just think it's so important to be cognizant of how you're feeling when you practice, especially when you start, because some people find good results or they find that it's relaxing and they really look forward to it, but you don't want to overdo it and you want to let it grow and expand organically. And
Mhm.
again, if you have a lot of stress or things in your past that are going to pop up, you just want to be aware and be kind to yourself because that's a huge part of this practice.
Yes, absolutely. Those are very wise words, Whit. Thank you so much for sharing your history with us and your wisdom around meditation. So you found this book and you found meditation, and the two of them together really helped you launch yourself to where you are now. How long ago was that?
I'm pretty sure it was late August of 2002.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, so
23.
23 years. I started out with a very short practice, which seemed like a long time. Today, my practice is about 30 minutes every morning. And I don't miss very many mornings. I bet that I miss less than 5 a year, I would guess.
Wow.
And you know what? And I don't mean to make that sound like that's a tremendous accomplishment because it's not. I'm just comfortable with that.
Mhm.
It's just it's building a practice. I've been very careful not to overdo it, but I've
Mhm.
never found it to be particularly difficult. And I think it's because I started, once you start to feel the benefits, they become so ingrained in who you are. A better way of saying that is once I started to realize that really what I'm doing here when I practice is I'm just getting to know the true self better.
Yes.
And so you get to know that self better and you become that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They kind of merge together or one becomes more clear. And so what happens on the cushion, you start to take with you in your life. And I'm not trying to make it sound like everything gets better, but you do get much more comfortable with whatever comes up. You're less likely to judge something or someone, and you're less likely to spend all your time wishing and wanting for other things because you understand that's just more suffering. So,
That sounds better to me. That sounds a
you're
lot
right. I
better.
think that's fair. Right. So for me, it's just, and I'm lucky also because I have a family that understands and supports this. I have some space. I found a good community. But, even when it was just me, and for a long time, that's the way it was just so helpful. It's just my path. And I understand it's not for everybody. And I understand some people aren't particularly ready. But I
Yeah.
do think if somebody's listening and they think they might be ready, that's a pretty good sign that you are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So do you ever go back to the counting the 10 breaths? That's what
I
you meant by 10 breaths, right? You
Yeah,
count the 10.
absolutely. So just about every time I practice, no matter where it is or how long it's going to be, I count the first 10 breaths.
Okay.
And I find that helps center me. It helps remind the rest of the body that this is what we're doing. It also, I don't know, it helps me get engaged. There are times, especially if I'm someplace, like if I'm trying to practice a little bit on an airplane where there's a lot of other distractions, I might continue to count my breaths. I might count them for the whole time. Um,
Would you say that this is how you keep yourself psychologically, physically, and spiritually fit? Okay.
Absolutely. I would even take it one step farther, Steph. I don't know the better way to do it. Like, lifting weights, running, having a therapist, all those things are valuable. Journaling, yoga, I believe in all those things. But I think first and foremost, having a practice is the one thing that you can do yourself. And I think it's more valuable than any of the others for those reasons.
I would have to agree with you. However, there must be some questions that come up for you that you feel like the cushion doesn't answer. Do you ever feel that you need to go to a teacher or a book, or is there anything that's come up that you feel like you just couldn't handle on your own and needed help with?
Because I started on my own and practiced for a long time by myself and had, gosh, 16, 17 years of practice before I became a part of TBC and Western Buddhism. I feel like for me, that is the way to deal with things. That is the way to do it. Now, I have started to utilize our community and some of our teachers more consistently because there is a real value there.
Mhm.
It's next step. But, I didn't want to be a Buddhist or really even a part of TBC, frankly, but I met people down there because I was leading classes for Serenity Pause.
What's it called?
Serenity Pause. That's the offering that the Unity side, the Christian side offers. It's a free meditation twice a day, every day. I attended some of those, and then I was leading classes or leading groups there for them, and then became friends with Victor and a few other people, and then started to attend TBC. My practice had kind of already led me to that.
You're just a Buddhist by default.
I really am. I really am. And I think it's a great way to be. I'll tell you where my blind spot is as it pertains to Western Buddhism,
Okay.
in that I'm not very interested in the stories or the teachings because I feel like I've come from them from a different angle. I don't want this to sound anything but sincere, but I feel like if you sit enough, you're going to come to the same realizations that some of the great Buddhist teachers came to through their
Mhm.
practice. And it's just awareness, acceptance, and patience. If you build around those three, everything else kind of falls into place.
Interesting. So I bet when you read great Buddhist teachers or the teachings, you just say to yourself, "Yep, that's right. Yep, that's it.
Well,
That's
yeah,
it."
yeah, a lot of times I draw it back to the simplest terms because that's what it is. It's awareness, acceptance, patience. It's not wanting, it's not judging, and it's noticing and trying to release fear as best you can.
And aversion, the other
Yeah.
side of the coin of craving.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm really enjoying the teachers at TBC, especially Victor and Robert in particular, their take and the fact that it's always fresh and it's been really helpful to me. When it comes down to it, to me, it's like, hey, just if you practice and you're true to your practice and again, stick to those basics, then Buddhism becomes not easy, but at least easy to understand or see where it could be a valuable philosophy for your life.
That must have been incredible for you to come over to the Buddhist side and say, wow, this is not what I thought it was at all. This is resonating so much with me. I just wonder if there was any kind of surprise for you there.
You know what? There was interesting because there was a moment or a gradual understanding that, hey, I am a Buddhist. This is what I am. This is what I'm supposed to be. This makes sense to me. And I think our community, what makes it so unique and so strong is that everybody comes to that realization if they're patient with the process. Some people come and they love the support and they love the refuge. And then they decide, okay, I'm better now. I'm going to go back out and do my thing. And that's fine. We're happy to be a refuge for anyone and everyone. But then some of us, I think, also start to realize that, hey, this is exactly where I want to be. Sometimes it's because of the teachings, but mostly it's because of the community. It's so great to be a part of a group that is so authentic and that there are no expectations, no righteousness, and no judgment. And it's not because we're better people. It's because those things don't work. If it worked, then we would be greedy and judgy, and that's what we would do. But they make us feel bad. They cause more suffering. It's not who we are. We can't do our best work.
It's very practical. It's very practical.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that because I'm a very practical person, probably by default because I lack talent, but that's okay. What I've found is that it just fits. It makes sense. We're going to be kind, not because that's the right thing to do, but because that's who we are.
And it feels good.
Right.
I have to say, we are interested in feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to feel better, and we want our listeners to feel better.
Right. Absolutely. This is the best reason of all to practice, in my opinion, even if you don't believe anything else we've said. When you practice, you become a happier, healthier version of yourself, and that makes it better and easier for everybody else who has to deal with you.
Yes, and for anyone else you have to deal with.
Yes.
In yourself. When I face the world with this practice, I just feel so much better.
Right. Absolutely. I don't want to do it any other way. And it's every phase of my life. It's work. It's family life for sure. It's when I play sports. It's when I'm dealing with a situation that maybe isn't one of my favorite things to do, or maybe it's dangerous. It doesn't matter what it is. I just know that I can find my breath. I can be present for this and I can handle this. And if I can't handle it, that's fine, because I also understand that everything changes, including me in this life. So.
Well, is there anything more that you'd like to tell us about you? I'd like to just open the floor up to you to just, instead of fielding my questions, what about something that's on your mind that you'd like to share with us? Maybe a recent challenging experience that this practice has helped you with, or?
Well, so, it's funny because you think, I'll give you a couple of examples of times where it's been trying for me and what the practice has been able to do. One, fairly recently has been some changes in my employment status and, the fear that brings up. And this sounds silly, but of all the things, employment, because I've had some challenges in the past, that scares me. It scares me to go through that process because it's just difficult. And I'm a good employee and I've had a pretty successful career, but that's something that does give me pause and it does make me uncomfortable. And so with the practice, I'm able to recognize and hold space for that fear. I've noticed that it's not as intense and it's not as all-encompassing as maybe it would have been, 10 years ago. And so that has been a huge help. But the other thing that I find interesting, at least my practice, is that when these challenges, whatever they are, pop up and I'm struggling a little bit, I feel fear or I feel anxious. Part of me, sooner or later, somebody on the ego side will raise their hand and say, you've been practicing for 22 years. Shouldn't you have this figured out by now? There's that weird feeling of like, oh, I should be farther along. I should be able to levitate by now. Which probably isn't a goal of mine, but it would be fun. It'd be a good party trick.
You
So
are glowing, though. I will say that. You do have sort of a glow about you.
that may be true. That's probably because I'm not wearing enough sunscreen,
No.
but yeah. So, it is funny. Again, it's so freeing to be an authentic version of yourself. So, that's again, I think that speaks why our community has been, always seems to have an energy about it. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of people who want to bring, support, love, and ideas they want to execute. It's amazing. This podcast is a great example because it not only provides us with the subject matter that it's not near and dear to our hearts, it's what fills our hearts. And it's so important to make it available to people that maybe have never thought of meditation and Western Buddhism before. I've never thought about what a community could mean to them. What would it be like to have a group of people that just accepted me for who I was?
Amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing, isn't it?
it really is. And it makes you want to do your best in whatever you decide to try. But it's almost more than that. It's a given your best because there is nothing else to give. You're not trying to meter it. There's no strategy to make me look smarter. Although we could probably use one, there is no strategy for that right now. So I've been so surprised to find that because I knew what the practice and what Western Buddhism had meant to me, but then to see it in action with others, it doesn't motivate you because you're already doing it. It just feels so good to see it and to just be that authentic version of you.
And to have that mirrored back to you. Sangha is so good at that. Our Sangha, we just keep mirroring back and forth to each other. It's just, that's been powerful for me as well, Whit. I can
Yeah.
completely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. And, we touched on it earlier. I think I mentioned my perspective because I practiced for so long before I came to Western Buddhism. I think the thing that I love about this path in Western Buddhism is that because there are no rules per se, and there is no real hierarchy. There are teachers, but whether their approach lands for you, that's your own business. But really, all Western Buddhism expects you to be and to do is to be your true self and to be responsible for your actions. We can trust you. We can trust your actions because you're being your true self. And that speaks to the heart of the matter, and that is that all of us are Buddhas. All of us have that Buddha nature. That's what the first guy was trying to explain. It's not follow him because he's a prophet. You do what he did because he was able to find this, and he's not asking to be worshiped. He's not asking to be revered. He was kind enough to leave some teachings, certainly. But again, it's just making that space and getting in touch with your true self. That's where the sacredness of this is. And that's where it becomes so beautiful and so life-changing.
Absolutely. Well, should we wrap this up, Whit?
The only thing else I would like to add is that if you're interested in any of this, you can go to the Temple Buddhist Center website, and there are ways and tabs there to answer questions. You can also check out TBC online if you want to see what a service looks like. It's incredibly welcoming. It's a joyful way to learn more about it. If you want to learn more about meditation, The Key by Sherry Huber is the book I was talking about. Thich Nhat Hanh also writes How to Sit, a book that is very short and very simple, but a great way to start a practice. And finally, you can also come back to Om on the Range and listen to our stories and get engaged here. If you're interested, it's a great way to be happier and healthier. And last thing, Steph, is thank you so much for taking this on. You did a great job, and I can't thank you enough. I love working with you, and I love who you are. Thank you.
I love working with you and who you are too, Whit. I really appreciate you, and I love being part of this community and part of the Om on the Range community. And, as we go forward, staying real, true, grounded in our lived experience, I think that intention just carries us all through. And we're happy that more people are coming along with us. Conversations like this are really at the heart of Om on the Range, aren't they?
They are. It's raw and real, as you
Right.
like to say.
Raw and real. Real people, real practice.
That's so true.
And the courage to meet our lives honestly. If something in today's episode resonated with anybody, we hope that we could hear from you. Send us a comment to Om on the Range podcast at gmail.com, or you can leave a message on our Spotify or YouTube page. Thanks, everyone, so much for listening, for practicing alongside us, and for being part of this community. And with that, Whit, I'm going to follow your lead and say happy trails.
Happy trails. Thank you. Thanks to our On the Range production team for making this program possible, and to Mr. Brad Athey for composing and performing the original music. And to you, our listeners, thank you for being a part of this journey as we explore meditation, Western Buddhism, and the path towards a happier, healthier life. Remember, less suffering and more joy are available to everyone. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep finding peace in the simple, practical things. For all of us here at Om on the Range, happy trails.